Is that it? Was that the?
So yeah.
All right. Well, that means we're live then, right?
Yep.
I think so. Didn't we have like a clips montage that you put together, Rob?
No. I'm gonna intro first. You're already going off script, Luke.
Okay. I'm really poor start. Sorry, everyone.
So excited.
Unbelievable. So welcome everybody to a special post-lockdown edition of Saturday Night at the Movies. We are pretty excited to be doing this. This is new for all of us, at least taking the reins of a stream and doing this. So hopefully we manage okay and get through it. The brief intro that I wanted to give, especially for new viewers, I don't know who the hell's watching this, but if you are new to this, we've been doing this for a couple of months now, and we've been getting together every week, talking about a weekly film for the students, and the idea is for some relief during the lockdown. Now, we don't have a film to talk about this week, so we are going to sort of talk about all manner of things that we feel like might be interesting and relatable and just enjoyable. So that's basically it. We have a nice little montage intro to play. I'm excited about that.
Which I already ruined. I'm sorry about that.
Ruined the surprise, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we got nothing to play. But Callum, you might want to hit play.
Hit play?
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, Saturday night at 8 o'clock, I know where I'm gonna go.
I have a question for Luke and Callan, and my question is, Luke, wait, is Callan frozen?
Callan is frozen. Should we start again?
This is so, it never freezes when I'm in class, and then obviously as soon as Rob starts talking, it's just everything freezes.
And we have Luke and we have Callan here at a... Oh, not again.
It's happened again.
Who cares what picture you see? When you're with your baby, let's roll in the balcony. Well, there's technical...
Scooby-Doo was my threshold for horror when I was little. So...
Yeah, no, I didn't select this film, by the way. This was all Rob, so I'm not having
He's lying.
that on me. That's a lie, Rob. I want to say, Rob, that I hope that you paused the film when you were texting your film, because no one should ever be looking down at their phone and then looking at another screen while watching a film. Guys, that is just as bad as drink driving. You've got to focus on the road while you're driving. Focus on the screen, the film, when you're watching it. Please, Rob, that's really bad.
I totally agree.
How much time do we have left, Rob?
Oh, you know, we've got all day, but...
Can
I
I put you on the spot? I want to put you on the spot specifically. I think you probably know where I'm going with this, Rob.
Luke's already covered everything. Like, I don't think there's anything to add to that. But like, Rob, you can say that we didn't have to do this, which is true. But like, how would we not want to do this with how much fun we've been having every week?
I thought you were going to say something else there.
We've had like a blast every week doing this, and I'm glad that a lot of the students watching seem to have as well. And so, I'd echo everything both of you said.
I guess I should just end on the note that, you know, my self-esteem has just gone through the roof thanks to these, because of the amount of crap that I've been copying from Luke and Callan. And yeah, it's a great confidence boost. I sort of end these and think, oh, geez, I feel so good about myself. I really appreciate those compliments.
Beloved.
The hair, the beard, how well manicured we were, and progressively as we
listen, it just gets worse
across the semester.
Yeah. I'm booked in for a haircut in a couple of weeks' time, but until then, this is just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got one.
Yeah. So look, I see all sorts of pretty hilarious comments going on already in the chat there, which is great. I have a hardcore fan.
You've got a hardcore fan.
Of course you have a hardcore fan, Rob.
I recognise Monica and Khan and Callan, Madeline.
I recognise Maddie saying Callan supremacy. Yeah, 100% true, Maddie.
So, guys, we appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Oh, sushi too. We've got a hashtag going with this.
Rob's hardcore fan. Can you get a bit of a hashtag? This is I'm feeling left out.
Just for a heads up, I'm going to be blocking anyone who does hashtag Team Rob or hashtag Team Luke because I'm in charge of that. So fair warning.
That is fair, and probably anyone that actually, you know what? I was about to say anyone that mentions Marvel. I've just mentioned it now. They're probably
So you're getting blocked now.
if there's too much Marvel chat in the comments section, I think we'll have to block them as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Callan, just get rid of Luke if you can.
Yeah, I'll just discreetly kick him out.
Yeah. So look, this is exciting, and we're really happy for all of you being here and taking the time out to be here with us. So we thought we would do a couple of things and make everything. Madeline, I can't get on board with that hashtag.
It's all right, mate.
I'm happy about that. So I thought what we would do to start off would be just to give a sense of our own personal connections. We've had a bit to do with each other over the years. Callan and Luke, you both met right at the start of this unit and getting ready, so you didn't know each other.
Well, this was actually really awkward. Thanks for mentioning this, Rob. So we met, and I was like, "Who's this Callan Norman fellow?" And I was excited to meet him. And Callan, what did you reveal to me?
I revealed to Luke that he was my very first film tutor, and he didn't remember me at all. So good stuff.
Yeah, that's
all right. I forgive you. I wasn't very talkative in first year film studies, I don't think. So
probably why. Did you do well? I can't. I don't remember you, so I don't know.
I mean, I don't dislike you, so you obviously didn't leave an impression on me. So yeah.
So that was a beautiful
was this
moment.
5 years ago? How long ago was this?
6, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't count.
And that's around the same time that you and I met, Rob. So I was chatting to you about this the other day, that my first memory of you was my very first teaching gig in Intro to Film Studies, and it was back at I think it was a week 4 class, and you were doing a guest lecture for the Sound Week, which was David Lynch's Lost Highway, which my audiovisual students, I know there's a couple here in the comments, we obviously looked at Lost Highway this semester. That was the first time I met you, Rob. So 5-6 years ago for that particular unit at that Clayton cinema, that beautiful Clayton cinema. Do you remember that, or have I not stuck in your
No, I don't remember. Of course I remember that.
Wouldn't be the first time.
No, I definitely remember that. That was a weird time because I think I had just finished my PhD, or I was getting close to finishing, and I was starting to do a few guest lectures and things like that. Luke, you were sort of tutoring pretty heavily into that unit, I think, at the time. We both realized that we had the same supervisors, right, for our PhDs.
I think we all had Dean.
We all have the same supervisor, yeah.
Now, I also taught Callan back in his undergrad, and I remember that distinctly.
Oh, thank you.
Because we did study together for a couple of, at least 3 or 4 years.
2 or 3.
Yeah,
I'll say 3. Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to sound like the one who forgot. So
let's go with 3.
Yeah.
Callan's first tutorial with me was, well, like that first semester at least, was pretty classic. Callan was really quiet, didn't really say much until the major essay. He wrote a really great essay on it, right?
Yeah, and high concept,
yeah. In this unit, right? In this unit.
Yeah.
And I kind of called him out in the next tutorial and said, great essays, everybody, but one in particular, this little upstart over here.
I can remember shrinking into my seat, just like slowly going down.
So, Callan, sorry, Rob, did you have more to that story?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, ever since then, I can't seem to get rid of him.
You can't just shut up anymore. Yeah, you did this.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you obviously didn't write anything that memorable when I taught you, because...
Okay, this was my first semester. I was warming up, just
fair enough. What were you? Were you like in the 70s? I genuinely can't remember. Were you a HD student?
I think I was a HD student, yeah. Not to brag, but
you're doing a PhD now, so
yeah, it's not.
You probably think you were getting HDs.
I'll see if I can find a first year film essay and see what comments you made on it, and I'll forward it to you.
So I had the the pleasure of also supervising Cullen's honors. He's off on his own now with his PhD, but for everybody who probably, I think we've mentioned this maybe once or twice, but this is Cullen's first semester of teaching. Yeah. So I'm really happy, honestly, that we were able to do that together as well. And I think you've done just an amazing job. Your students obviously feel the same way. But yeah, we've sort of gone through the whole gamut, undergrad teaching or studying together, honor supervision, and now working together. So it's been a pretty amazing, I guess, like pathway for both of us in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Which has been really nice. Like it's been genuinely really nice. And Luke, the two of us, like we've crossed paths and worked together quite a bit.
We've worked which has been on numerous units. I sort of have always called myself a fanboy of your lectures, you know that. And memorably, we taught this unit. We always refer back to this, don't we? 2019, the last time this unit ran, back in the old world, back when we were on campus and we had the lectures in person, and those were some great memories. But yeah, so I think that we had taught together before that. I'm fairly certain, maybe once before, but
yeah, that was the semester that everything was going wrong in the lecture theatre. You were up the front. I was listening back to those lectures this semester because I had to transcribe some of them, at least the start. And I always listen back to the Caulfield ones because there would be those stupid things happening, and I'd be going, "Hey, Luke, can you come up here and fix this thing?"
And then we were both just standing awkwardly in front of just 100 students that were just looking around at each other. Two idiots up the front don't know how to run a lecture, and it was one particular lecture. I think there were 4 or 5 things that just went wrong. Wasn't there a big PA announcement where we had to evacuate?
There was a fire alarm, and it was the whole thing.
Something else, like I think your mic stopped working at a certain point. I don't know, the screen shut off. It was good times, and then we've sort of replicated that on Zoom. My students would know I've done things like ended classes instead of ended breakout rooms. My camera switches off, my mic stops working. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, hopefully maybe next year we can all reunite on campus and teach this unit again in its proper format. I think that would be great. So look,
and Rob, just before you go on, Khan's just mentioned Classic in the chat, and Khan was part of that unit in 2019 because he was in my class. So Khan would probably remember everything that we're talking about here and can probably relate.
It was so funny because I think the first couple of lectures and weeks were really serious and, quite formal. And then things just started descending and getting worse. But it was also when the unit started to get to its sort of apex as well,
Yes.
Top Gun and all these other sort of films. So there was sort of ridiculous content and technical failures going on. And the students, it was like some weird comedy show. I think every time I did a lecture there at Caulfield, I went to Clayton. The Clayton lecture was the first one, and I would go there. It was very much a different vibe, but here at Caulfield, at least, it was that kind of silliness. But
absolutely, we should just mention Grace Russell in the chat. So Grace is here. Hey, Grace.
Grace, thanks for coming along. So some of you may have been taught by Grace, I'm sure. So yeah, Grace, feel free to chat to the students or whatever in the chat if you're up for it.
Yeah, and occasionally we'll notice one of them. That seems to be a bit of a competition. I do appreciate the t-shirt comments as well. That's very important to recognize the high concept t-shirt. So,
although it's a bit disappointing that you didn't fork out the $300-400 for the Calvin Klein version.
How do you know I didn't? How do you know this isn't the Calvin Klein version?
I think the logo is too high.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I'll bear that in mind next time.
Okay, so
should we get on to the first bit?
Yeah. Let's move to point number 2. So we were talking, and I think we were getting some feedback, and we thought something that might be useful and interesting as well would just be for some of the students to, I guess we've talked a little bit about Cullen's progression, but to maybe just hear from the three of us about, I guess, how we got here and maybe why we're here, any sort of films or moments that kind of put us on this pathway. So yeah, I think that could be a nice thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whoever wants to go for it.
Yeah, I'll start. So for me, part of the reason I've really enjoyed this unit so much is that my interest in film started with Hollywood, like I think a lot of people's did. And so I don't come from an academic background or a family who's super into film. Like my mum and dad took me to the movies a lot, but we were seeing Rugrats and Scooby-Doo and, Batman, all the things that I love the most. And so that was what really kickstarted interest in film. And then also just by fortune being at that time where sort of everything online exploded, that I could follow things behind the scenes. So all of those favorite films, following them behind the scenes and realizing I had this interest in filmmaking, not just actual films. So when I got to uni, I was originally going to do, I don't know if I've ever actually told you this, Rob, a screenwriting course at Melbourne Uni. I got into that and was ready to go, and then changed my mind at the last minute to do arts law, which the law side didn't last very long. And my original plan was to do a minor in film and just use that as like a side gig to stay interested in uni. And eventually that turned into my major and then honours and then PhD. But for me, in terms of like formative films, I think as a kid, it's stuff like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Dark Knight movies, all those. I wasn't a kid when the Dark Knight movies came out, but teenager. And those big Hollywood films, which just really captivated me. And then following them behind the scenes, but it was really TV, which sort of took me into more serious, maybe artistic stuff. So a lot like The Wire, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, Deadwood, like all these real seminal shows. And then reached out to global cinema. So Rob knows one of my favorite films is The Assassination of Jesse James. So Western movies, really got into that.
Yeah.
Westerns and then like European cinema as well. So it's been a pretty steady progression, which I think is the case for a lot of people, but started in Hollywood. And I think that's just one nice connection to this unit for me.
Really
so that's sort of what we were looking for there.
I think so, yeah.
That's a really great way to begin. Yeah, fantastic.
Luke?
So, I mean, for me, interestingly, I sort of grew up enjoying cinema, not being an avid, passionate fan of cinema, probably until first or maybe second year uni. So what was happening in my undergraduate, I sort of did a Bachelor of Communications, and I did at the time there was this dual award that was being offered at Chisholm TAFE in Berwick, and that was a professional writing and editing course. So I did that concurrently with the Bachelor at Monash. And so early on, I was doing film units as electives and started realizing a bit of a trend in the sense that going through to second, third year undergraduate, all of my film units, I was sort of getting 80s, 90s, very, very, very high marks. And in everything else, I was 50s, 60s, and it was sort of film was sticking out. And I did a history unit as an elective, and I think I barely scraped through for a pass in that. And then I was getting like a 95 plus in a film unit. And so I thought, there might be something here. So that's sort of what kept me and pushed me through to the postgraduate side of film. So for me, it was just falling in love with cinema at Monash and through these undergraduate courses. And anyone that has been one of my students, it's not surprising to mention that my favorite genre is horror. And so that's the genre that I studied for my PhD, the film Wolf Creek, and Australian cinema as well. And so for me, my two passions in cinema, the two areas that I study and focus on are horror and Australian cinema. So seminal films for me, Wolf Creek, Wake in Fright, Walkabout as two key films at that sort of re-emergence of the Oz film industry in the early 70s. So many more films that I probably won't mention them all here because I think we're going to get into that a little bit more soon. But so that's sort of what sort of got me into the academic side of it. So yes, I did an entire PhD on Greg McLean's Wolf Creek. So I had to watch that film and many, many, many other horror films many, many, many times. So I've sort of become desensitized to screen violence in a way. And then for me, I've also got the filmmaking that I do on the side of my academic work and my teaching as well. So I've tried to blend both of those, and so far it's been a lot of fun. So that's sort of my sort of little pathway into where I'm at.
Look, I didn't know you liked horror.
You didn't know that
it's surprising. Yeah,
that's actually fair point. I think I've kept that pretty quiet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm revealing it all tonight.
I'm just reading some of these comments in the chat, by the way, which are really lovely. Amazing the theme song at the end. Yeah, maybe. I've got a bottle of whiskey in the back. If I kind of take a few swigs, then I might loosen up for that. So look, mine is a little bit, I'd take it in maybe a different direction, but I have really early memories of watching films, and a couple of them really stand out, and they kind of lodged in my brain a little bit, and I guess carried me forward into really enjoying film as I was growing up, getting to university and kind of messing around with a lot of different disciplines and not being very satisfied, and then finding a bit of a niche with what was then called visual culture at Monash. But one of the memories that really stands out is my dad was a really big film buff. He loved and still loves films, and he used to play me all these old films when I was growing up from a very early age. And I always thought that it was kind of forced maybe, and that I didn't want to watch them because I'd just prefer to watch something that was meant for me, you know, like a kid's movie, and he'd be showing me all these other things. But, you know, very quickly I realized that there's some pretty interesting stuff here, and he had interesting taste. And, you know, my name is a dead giveaway, but my dad is Italian. So, of course, one of the things that he loved to show me were Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. And we watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And at the end of that film, there is this standoff sequence, which lasts for like 7 minutes. And there's three characters.
Such an amazing
and they're all standing in this sort of circle, looking at each other. And Leone just starts cutting in, you know, close-ups, wide shots, mid shots, aspects of their, you know, what they're wearing, their guns, everything for 7 minutes. And this music just keeps kind of whirring along and building up to something that never quite happens. And I just remember watching that and thinking, what the hell is this? Like, this is crazy. And I love it so much. And so I continued on. And like I said, I got to uni, and I was failing things and not doing very well because I didn't really, I was just taking things that I thought were interesting rather than having a sense of even where I wanted to go. And then I stumbled into visual culture, started majoring in that, and realized, oh, this is actually something. And it gives me the opportunity to think about things in the way that I would like to have discussions with people like we're having, and we've been doing all semester, that I find really just rewarding. And so I just kept studying, and I don't know, I just really haven't necessarily stopped, and we're all here. Like, it's very weird how it happens, because I think a lot of students think that from where they are at like this point in time as an undergrad to where maybe we are at our various stages is just such a huge leap. Like, how do we possibly get there? But I think, Callan, you'd probably attest to this, that it kind of just happens pretty organically, and all of a sudden you're doing a PhD and you're like, oh, I've actually gone through.
Yeah, Rob bullies you into doing it, and then all of a sudden
well, that's the main part, yeah.
But look, honestly, on that, if any student is, you know, achieving really great grades and really enjoying film units, then postgraduate study and then moving into a PhD, it's the way to kind of to teach. Firstly, you get offered those opportunities doing a PhD, because Callan, you're obviously still, and you've got through your confirmation, but you're still sort of going through that process, and that's really the pathway into sort of where we're all at. So, Rob, it's a nice little segue into sort of chatting about our favorite films, because I've known you for how many years? 5, 6 years, something like that. Yeah. I'm very overt and very obvious about my favorite cinema, although apparently I've just revealed tonight that I love horror for the first time. So there you go, surprise. But Rob, you're very clandestine when it comes to your favorite films. And I've sort of realized that I don't really know. Now I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know too many others. You've kept very quiet. Now I know that you did the lecture for the film Sound Week in that intro to film unit that I remember you from 5 years ago. So I know you did sound for your PhD. What are some of your favorite films, Rob? Please reveal it for me and for everyone else, because I don't know. You've sort of kept it a bit of a mystery.
Well, obviously Top Gun.
We knew that.
Sort of cue the the chat comments here, I reckon, as soon as you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Well, Robert said Days of Thunder. No, I mean, Top Gun is legitimately up there somewhere. I think that film is so outrageous. No, I look, I don't know. I'm not the type of person who keeps a kind of meticulous list and, you know, sticks to that. I think Callan, I revealed probably in that semester. My
Yeah.
top 10.
Oh no, I think that was the third year unit, but yeah, you
okay.
definitely did a top 10.
I think that was when we realized that we both loved that assassination of Jesse James
Jesse
film.
James, yeah, it was.
So that is one of them. I think that film is extraordinary. But I mean, Luke, you're going to love my answer that I gave at least to Callan's class. My favorite film might be The Shining. It might be a pseudo.
The Shining.
I mean, would you call it a horror film? I don't know.
You denied it was a horror film.
Bearing in mind that we need to keep this the time frame for this fairly limited, I don't really want to get into a debate as to whether The Shining is a horror film or not, because we could be here all night. Rob, give the students a bit of context here about my reaction there and how surprised I am by that, which I am. You need to talk a little bit about how much you dislike horror, or it's not really, because that is a really shocking choice for me. The Shining for you.
Look, I'm all for shock value, so you know that's part of it. I don't know, Luke. I mean, like the thing I think that is probably typifies my film choices and interests is that they're not really unified in any real way. Like I can say that I absolutely love that film. It's also a film that I just will not kind of watch willingly. You know, like I've seen it 2 or 3 times in my life, and that's it. And it, you know, as great as I think it is, I kind of don't want to go near it most of the time. I think the last time I saw it was at the Astor, you know, on the big screen, which was well worth that. But look, I've already said, you know, horror. If I have to watch a film where babies are being thrown against the wall, where they start like talking and
we did clarify that's niche genre.
One specific example of horror, Rob. Like you can't just pull that out and use that as the defining feature of all horror cinema.
Okay, but the other part of it, which I guess is worth mentioning now, is that I kind of like to take certain positions like this to antagonize a little bit. I think it's
you antagonize me when it comes to horror.
So the Marvel thing is part of that, absolutely. The horror thing with you, Luke, I think is definitely part of it. Because I like the banter, and I like taking a position that I guess creates conversation rather than, I guess, just saying, "Oh, I don't really like it," because, you know, for some really obvious reason. So, yeah. I mean, what about you guys? I mean,
Sushi, later 100%. Rob is a troll. That's chat is completely
yes, absolutely.
What Sushi said.
And whose babies are you throwing? You're referring to the Nightingale, aren't you, there, Rob?
Yeah, the Nightingale, which
the Nightingale, which represents all of horror. Just that one scene.
According to our unit coordinator, Rob.
Yeah.
Callan, what's your favorite film?
Sorry, my favorite film. I'm sort of like Rob. I don't know what the one is. I do love the assassination of Jesse James, Blade Runners, both Blade Runners I really love. That's sort of a really common thing, but I do worship them. I think Shame, Rob, we both had on our list as well. Steve McQueen Shame.
Great
and There Will Be Blood I really love as well. That's something that I always come back to, and it's sort of the first time I saw it, expected it to be like this really dark horrific masterpiece, and I think it's sort of a comedy. Like, I go back to it, and it's really funny every time you watch it, especially Paul Dano. But yeah,
Paul Thomas Anderson is a genius filmmaker.
Yeah.
He makes brilliant films in such a diverse range of genres, and his cinematic craft is just extraordinary. I think he's great.
Yeah.
That's such a good film.
Yeah, so I don't really have that. I'm sort of like Rob in that way. I don't have like one film that I always revisit. But in terms of, like those favorite genres or whatever, I sort of dip between all different ones. And Rob knows as well, like I'm very into TV. So I do have favorite TV shows compared to film, which are, I mentioned them before, like The Wire, Mad Men, Deadwood, Mr. Robot, and The Leftovers.
Mr.
I think are my
Robot,
top 5.
great choice. And that's kind of like the almost like the golden era of that type of that sort of push and shift to that cinematic television.
And I think it's really strange in that way.
The streaming service boom.
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. So I can't list a top 10 favorite films when I've seen way more films than TV. But for some reason, I can just, if you ask me to rattle off 10 favorite TV shows, I could do it consistently. But yeah,
excellent.
That's generally me.
My favorite film is High School Musical. Any student that has had me this unit will appreciate that little reference there. That was a guilty pleasure film that I gave to my students this semester.
It is a horror film, right? That's a horror film.
It absolutely is a horror
Yeah, definitely.
Which is really ironic considering the films that I generally watch. High School Musical watching party. Which one? Number 1. First and foremost, probably then number 3 and then number 2. But number 1 is nostalgic and classic.
Love this, got this all in your head.
But look, for me, as I mentioned before, Wake in Fright and Walkabout as 2 not only really influential films for me in my progression as an academic, but films that have inspired me from a filmmaking point of view and also just from enjoyment too. I love. What do I love? Probably my favorite horror film would be Night of the Living Dead. I love Evil Dead 1 and 2. But then lots of different sorts of cinema as well. Ingmar Bergman's one of my favorite directors. Wild Strawberries is probably one of my favorite films. I think that is such a master film and piece of cinema. And David Lynch is another one of my big favorite filmmakers. Mulholland Drive always sticks out for me. Diverse range, but so we've gone from High School Musical to Evil Dead.
I love how the thing that's got chat most excited is debating High School Musical. Like some of my best students just being like, actually, 2 is the best High School Musical.
You should have seen my students when I mentioned this in class. The conversation we had about High School Musical was, but there you go. And the other. I suppose it's not really a guilty pleasure film, but the other one that I really love is Titanic, James Cameron's masterpiece from '97. And that film, I have the same sort of affiliation for that Rob has for Top Gun. The soundtrack, Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, Leo and Kate, just spectacular film. I love it.
So I don't know whether we're doing well here, whether people are kind of admiring and respecting us more or much less with some of these things, but I feel like a lot of what we've been talking about, which might be a nice segue into something else that we kind of wanted to chat a little bit about, is just genres. And I guess the unit has been touching, we haven't really spoken explicitly a lot of the time about genres, but we've covered quite a lot, right? We have had action films, we've had horror films, we've had big sort of blockbuster type films, kind of romance dramas, and a lot of things in between. So, I mean, we've got the sort of the obvious ones out of the way potentially, but maybe we could talk about, I mean, Luke, for example, non-horror genres that you really like or think are really interesting. We should, I guess, mention as well that kind of genre studies is also usually a really great kind of pathway for students, especially into honors, who want to kind of latch on to something and think a lot more about it, whether it's a collection of films or a single film. Not to get too kind of Monash centric about it, but it sounds like an advertisement.
Just for the staff who are watching.
Yeah, I'm in Grace. Yeah, so I'm just curious anyway, because maybe it's something that we actually haven't really
Yeah.
spoken about too much. But what is on the periphery of your kind of viewing habits that you enjoy and think is kind of interesting as a thing to think about, a genre to think about?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously, teen musicals. You've got
Yes.
horror and teen musicals. They're number one and,
Yeah.
and two for me, like really clearly, distinctly.
Yeah.
This is probably a cop-out answer, but I don't have, apart from horror and teen musicals, I don't have a particular favorite genre necessarily. I just enjoy a good film, good classic cinema. So I enjoy a variety of different films. There's certainly that niche of horror and Oz film as a national cinema for me in terms of my own writing and what sort of led me to the position I'm in now. But really, it's just about a good quality film. So I sort of like good films from all genres. I think all genres are actually worthwhile. But horror, then teen musical for me. What about you, Callan?
Well, hang on a second. I think there's something interesting there. If I gave you a minute, Luke, can you rehab Australian cinema and television, the reputation? Because
That's
I've
a good idea,
definitely
yeah.
gone into classes and wanted to speak about, Australian cinema.
Yeah.
And, the students sort of go, oh, why?
Okay, so you want me to kind of convince everyone in a minute why they should watch Australian cinema?
Yeah.
Wow, pressure's on. I
Yeah.
actually agree with you. Every unit, and again, students in the chat that's watching that have had me will know that this is something that I'm very passionate about and I speak about a lot. Aussie cinema has some of, look, I mean, firstly, Story of the Kelly Gang, the first feature-length film ever created in 1905. So historically, it's sort of situated. And then I think Aussie films is really interesting national cinema that had this really big boom early with the Bushranger film and went dormant for a number of years and then was revitalized in the 1970s. I think Australian cinema, firstly, from the point of view of living in Australia and thinking about Australian cinema as a really interesting portal into, or example of how a national cinema connects with this idea of identity. The national identity is so strong and is showcased so strongly in Australian cinema. The landscape, the Aussie battler, kind of the idea of characters battling the terrain and the outback and the environment. There are some classic Australian films that I think are seminal and really, really important for students to watch that very few have watched. So I've already mentioned Wake in Fright, Walkabout. Sunday Too Far Away is another one from the 1970s that is part of that new wave that is really important to watch. Australian cinema is also, if you're a horror fan, is a really great national cinema from the point of view of horror, because there's some incredible horror texts from Australia, particularly in the 70s and 80s, but also in the 2000s as well. So there's just a lot of films that students and a lot of people haven't seen that I think will teach people a lot about how national cinemas work and how national cinemas are a vehicle to broadcast and disseminate identity to globally. And it's fantastic. The other really fantastic Aussie film is Samson and Delilah, a film by Warwick Thornton, which I think is a 2009 film, which is a masterclass in all sort of cinematic elements firing simultaneously. It's just such a beautiful story and narrative, and the cinematic techniques on display there, sound, editing, cinematography, etc. So there's some really well-crafted Aussie films. And I think if you were to dive deep into Oz film, then you'd learn a lot, and you'd also really strengthen your literacy and your knowledge, because I guarantee you most of the films in Australian cinema most people probably haven't seen, and a lot of them they wouldn't have heard of either. And Monica, Warwick Thornton, yes, I love Warwick Thornton.
So let's do an experiment. I'm never going to stream anything again in my life, so this is my one chance to do this. Everybody who is watching now in the chat, if you can type 1 if you're convinced by Luke's argument, and 2 if you're not sure. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Just abuse the
That's a long minute.
Callan.
Thanks, Callan.
I've got to support the co-workers.
Thanks, Micah. There we go, Rob.
Okay, fine.
I noticed, Rob. I'm noticing that you haven't put anything in the chat yet. You haven't put a number.
That's going to be the first 2. Just wait.
Well, I'm just holding back some criticism. No, I thought that was really convincing. And I'm on your team for sure. Like, I think
Thanks, Rob.
It's a difficult thing to rehab, actually, because there's just a certain kind of stigma which is hard to get away from. But if you're right, if you go and look at these films, you change your mind very quickly. I think Australian cinema is great. I mean, yeah. So I'm glad we sort of did that. I mean, we were going to talk about national cinemas and outside Hollywood kind of cinemas anyway. So we're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. But Callan, I guess on that note, I mean, it doesn't have to be outside Hollywood, but genres or national cinemas.
Genres. Oh, okay. I have to work hard here because I was going to make a joke about SpongeBob and Scooby-Doo being my favorite genre, just kids' movies. Because apparently, according to chat, that's what I'm known for. Yeah. But I think crime I'm really partial to, which is a huge genre. Like, that's so much under that banner. But whether that's film or TV or even games, I just really respond to crime stories and detective stories, especially. I've always loved like mystery movies, old Hitchcocky sort of detective movies, especially. And that translates to a lot of national cinema, particularly Nordic TV has a lot of that mystery detective element that I really love. European cinema, if you go back, tends to have a lot of that. And South Korean recently I've been watching a fair bit of, which has really great detective stories. In terms of a genre, the one that I kept thinking of, both in relation to this unit and that I've been watching a lot of lately, is just epics as a genre. So like Lawrence of Arabia, I meant to mention before, that's one of my favorites. But yeah, so those sort of big epic films. And I think you can also look at Japanese cinema. So I really love Kurosawa as well. So if you go back to Throne of Blood, Hidden Fortress, Seven Samurai, all of those ones, they're really great ones for people to watch. And they are very accessible, I suppose. Like if you're only familiar with Hollywood, it's not that much of a leap. Like, yeah, it's black and white and it's in a different language. But putting that aside, they're actually really entertaining. That's their goal, is to be as spectacular and grand as possible, and they do that really, really well. Memories of Murder is that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yes.
Sushi. So yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, Seven Samurai, it's a 4-hour film, but it's actually quite easy to watch. And I completely agree on Kurosawa. He's a master. What about you, Rob? I mean, are you still going to be clandestine here, or are you going to do it more?
He's going to say Marvel.
yeah. Marvel is my favorite genre.
That's the ultimate twist to this unit, everyone. Rob loves Marvel. There you go.
That universe building is so kind of captivating and powerful. Very solemn. Robert, you're in the chat there, and we had a lot of fun and disagreements last semester about Marvel, which I'm sure you'll remember. But
100% right about Scooby-Doo too, though. Just by the
way. So I don't know, like. To answer this question, I mean, maybe the two concepts together, genres and national cinemas, so things away from Hollywood, maybe more than anything, probably takes me back to not really contemporary cinema. So my kind of cinema guru is Werner Herzog, and you know that. His films were kind of a tipping point for me growing up as well, and sort of getting into the study side of things. I just sort of, again, a bit like the Leone example, but with Herzog, it's kind of a different thing. But I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, the kind of audacity of some of these films and his perspective. So by virtue of that, it kind of opens up a bit of a network for me. I would like to see the baby.
So you need to watch The Mandalorian for that, bro.
Sorry,
because to a lot of people, this is Werner Herzog's star of The Mandalorian, not director.
Yeah, that guy is also a filmmaker.
I appreciate it.
So that opens up a lot of networks for me, because Herzog, I suppose, is either distinctly connected or just referenced by other people. I kind of started to learn about cinema just by learning about him and listening to people he would talk about, and then I would go and sort of investigate that. So in terms of national cinemas, so Ozu is sort of a huge inspiration for Herzog. So I went to Ozu and went through that catalog of sort of films, and just these incredible and sensitive and sophisticated films about families and people. And then you kind of extrapolate out from there. That takes me to Finland and sort of Aki Kaurismäki, who's sort of an Ozu purist and kind of makes films in that style. So I like that kind of world of, maybe it's broadly sort of art cinema, I suppose, as a very, very broad genre. In terms of contemporary stuff, though, I mean, I still really love Westerns. I love sci-fi. I think sci-fi and Westerns both have this unique potential to talk about quite grand, large sort of ideas and issues. Sci-fi has to encounter the concept of like humanity and what it means to be alive and that kind of stuff. And the Western, in a different way, I think does that sometimes, not always.
No, I agree.
So yeah, that's a broad kind of map in a way, but like I said before, I don't have this sort of singular corpus of films, because I just don't want to restrict my taste necessarily that much.
I really like that idea. Of course, Top Gun. I really like that idea briefly of bouncing from one director to the next. Like that's, I think, probably how most people get into film, but it's definitely how I got into it, which is I really love this director and this film, and then you go watch their interviews, and the best question that can be asked in an interview or a press junket is what films they love, what inspired this, because then you just add it to a watch list and you get around to it, and that cycle just keeps on going.
It's sort of interesting, isn't it? Because it sort of really speaks to this idea of intertextuality and those intertextual chains of association that we forge and draw between films, not only from a spectatorship point of view, but also the filmmakers themselves. Really is at the heart of a lot of what we're doing in this unit. So I think intertextuality is vital, and the more you watch, and this is something I say to all of my students, just it sounds so simple. Just watch as much as you can. Just keep watching films. It's amazing, actually, being in sort of in the film production industry, the amount of filmmakers that don't actually watch a lot of film. Like you've got to build a muscle. You've got to work out to learn to ride a bike. You've got to actually practice, and so to make films, to learn about cinema, you've got to watch movies. And so I always encourage students to watch broadly and to watch as many different types of films as possible. And in that, you build that sense of literacy, and you're able to forge more of these intertextual associations.
I'm not laughing at you, by the way, Luke. It's just Meg's comment about Googling Werner Herzog.
It's insane. The very best interview of all time is the one when he gets shot. I think is that with Mark Kermode, and he just sort of shrugs it off. He's like, I think I have been shot, and then just moves on. Look,
if anybody wants to entertain themselves, just get on YouTube and find that video. But Luke, I just like, there's a personal story that I can just mention, which again, if I'm just thinking about little moments that kind of push me along. So when I first started my undergrad, I mentioned earlier that I was kind of taking all these different units and kind of having a miserable time, and actually failing a lot of stuff because I wasn't submitting, and I was pretty crippled with a lot of social anxiety as well. I'd just come out of high school. I was really unhappy. And I actually took a year off from study because I was overwhelmed by the whole thing, and I hadn't found sort of film study yet. And speaking of my dad, who was sort of always exposing me to films, and we were watching things together, and he was not impressed that I took the year off. And part of what I said when I took the year off was, look, I need time to get away from it, but I also think I might like to pursue a career in filmmaking. And one of the things he said to me, which just echoes what you were saying, he said, how can you be a filmmaker if you don't know filmmakers? Like,
Yes.
you need to study the craft first. And I was like, I'll just do it. I had this kind of like really young, petulant attitude, and was like, I can make a film. But really, I didn't know enough, and I hadn't been exposed to enough. I hadn't seen enough, and I thought I had at the time, but I just hadn't. So I think, that kind of process of investigation and just sort of discovery is also just so fun, and just putting the pieces together. And that's when you get the most out of it.
You're sorry, Callum, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say on that note that a lot of my students I know are interested in filmmaking as well as film theory. And maybe you two can help, because I can't remember who the quote is from, but I read it recently, which was about how half of directing is good taste. And that's 100% true. If you go and look at the best and most interesting directors, they're the ones who don't shut up about their favorite directors and their favorite films and their favorite influences. So even if it's not academic interest in film and you want to do it creatively, that's still really, really important.
You've got to watch. I mean, you're right there, Callan, and Rob as well. The classic example of this is Tarantino. I mean, everyone knows the Tarantino story about working in a video store and becoming obsessive about watching as much film as he could possibly get his hands on, and developing that encyclopedic knowledge. And we can probably position Scorsese in that conversation as well. And Tarantino never went to film school. And this isn't me dissing film school necessarily, because I'm a filmmaker, so I wouldn't be dissing film school. There's a lot of value in that too. But there is also something in how, if you want to get into the film production side of things, actually watching cinema and becoming as obsessive about it as you possibly can, and just watching everything under the sun. And you learn how to make a film, firstly, by exposing yourself to the medium and to the craft. The other thing, just to sort of move into really briefly this filmmaking idea, is a lot of students will ask me advice on, I want to move into the film production industry. I want to be a filmmaker. What would you advise that I do? There's no jobs. It's hard to sort of get a budget to make a film. And I advise them to you've got the technology, you've got an iPhone, you've got everything at your disposal. The best way to learn how to make films is to just make films. It's such simple advice. Get out there with a camera, even your iPhone, and just make films with your friends. Learn how to position things in front of the camera. Start editing things together, and they will suck initially, but you'll eventually build and you'll get better and better over time. And you almost learn how to make films as well by making really poor films. A lot of my early short films were rubbish. They were just terrible. I never went to film school. I learned how to make films from watching cinema and making really poor films, and you just develop and gradually find your own style over time. So
but hang on,
my advice to anyone that wants to.
This is confusing advice. I think the real advice is the best way to be a great filmmaker is to write HD essays for Callan and Luke and Rob. Isn't that what you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually getting to that before you interrupted me. That was actually my final point. That was actually what I was going to end on. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we could just seg to the unit and just have a bit of a brief recap on, I guess, how we thought it went. I mean, we're doing a bit of a meta thing if we talk about it, because we're in the middle of an initiative that we started in the unit, which is these Saturday night at the movies sessions. So, I mean, that's one component which we might like to just briefly talk about while we're doing it. But I don't know, Callan. I mean, this is your first semester of teaching. You fell ass backwards into this unit, but so I apologize. But what did you think of the being on the other side of it and teaching? And
I think I said to both of you, I don't think we were recording it that I'm worried it's all downhill from here, because I just had such a good time every week, and like with both of you, but then with my classes as well. And I know there's a few of them watching, and that's a lot on them. That's not on me. That's them making those classes every week. But for this unit especially, the feedback that I always got at the end of every class in week 11 was just how much fun they had. And this is the only opportunity to look at these films, to study them seriously, talk about them seriously, but actually have a fun time when they're doing it. And that's all part of uni, like that's part of their degree. So I really think it is one of the best units that you can do as part of an arts degree. I'm just going to put that out there. But for me, like, to teach it was amazing because it's so open. Like every week was a really quite broad topic when you think about it in a Hollywood sense, like stardom for one, but then even stuff like marketing and home video. There's so much that you can talk about in so many films. So that's what we did every week, was just talk about a huge range of films, and you can't always do that. So for me, yeah, I just found every week a blast to teach, and I don't think I could have got more lucky with a unit. Was that too soppy for what you were going for, or is that?
No, I mean, I'll probably one up you later on with the soppiness. So don't worry, it's good. Yeah, Luke, how about you? I mean, we had the sort of grand experience a few years ago. We're back at it. I think it's been kind of different, but also kind of memorable. Because it's been different. But yeah.
This is such a special unit. It really is. And Rob, I know you and I felt it in 2019 when it last ran. And it's don't worry about getting soppy, Callum, because I actually admitted to my audiovisual essay students after we had our festival for all their projects last week that I actually shed a tear after the final tutorial. It's been such an incredible emotionally charged semester. I think not just in this unit but all units. I think we're sort of approaching this end of lockdown. It's kind of the end of this phase in this era, and it's sort of always situated within this context. So I think that for me, this particular unit this year, it's been so much fun. And I know, speaking to you guys, and we've sort of interacted and stayed connected, almost semi-daily throughout the entire semester. And my classes, such amazing participation, such amazing students, such high results. They were just getting such great grades, and attendance was just, phenomenal every single week. And I think the students are getting really smart these days. And this is something I've been saying all semester. I think that's because of the digital age and the access to these films and technology. But the amount of fun that I've had in both of my units this semester, but obviously talking about this unit tonight, I've never had so much fun as a teacher. It's been such an incredible experience. And I think this is a really important unit early in, sort of the earlier units. Often we're sort of looking more at the text and the side of the text and using the text as a way of constructing meaning for the films. And I think this really gives students a different way of looking at cinema and different ways of situating films, and all of the additional context that they can position films within, think about when trying to construct those systems of meaning. And they're all just equally as important as each other. And I think that we sort of trace from that old Hollywood studio period all the way up to the digital era. So we're accounting for and navigating through the history of cinema as well. Personally, for me, I don't think I've ever felt so emotionally invested in a unit or in a semester of teaching. I've never taught a group of students across both of my units like I have, and I feel really grateful. And a lot of the feedback that I've received, and I know you guys have received, is that students have just had so much fun, and we've given them an outlet during a really challenging time. An outlet for enjoyment and relaxation and collaboration. And that's heartwarming to know that we and the students themselves within their groups, but we as a teaching team created that environment for them. And they can look back on this time and this really tough period and at least know that there was some enjoyment to be had. So I'm grateful. I'm already missing it. And I'm just really excited about this unit and sort of the potential for it moving forward, and hopefully this initiative that we've put in place as well, seeing this possibly grow as well. So Yeah, very soppy. There we go. Rob, can you one up me?
Do it.
do it. Yeah. No, I don't know. Like, I have been in quite a kind of vortex for the last couple of months, or 3-4 months now, with this unit, and it's been really intense, I think, for me. Putting together the lectures each week, getting into the classes, and extending those lectures into conversations, extending that into assessment and reading all these really, really kind of engaged and developed essays. Doing this, which we started, I think, in week 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Right? Yeah, it was week 5.
And yeah, I guess, I mean, I said this to my students, that we've had kind of 2 years of this. Like, maybe in first semester there was a bit of a reprieve from Zoom teaching and that kind of thing, but it felt very brief and almost like this weird hallucination. Last year was extremely difficult, but also it felt like there was a lot of unknowns last year. This year, especially this semester, being plunged back, for those in Melbourne, into a very long lockdown. And yeah, I think I took it really, really seriously, because I started to see very early in the first few weeks that this was actually having a big effect on students, and it was having an effect on me. So a lot of really strange things, I think, started to happen in my experience during the semester, in terms of how much energy and effort I was putting in. That just continued to kind of increase. I think my lectures started to get longer because I just kept adding to them and developing them further. And I kind of was just going for the entire semester on these 7-day kind of schedules and turnaround times to get all this stuff done. But the biggest payoff was everything that was happening around that. So when I would go into classes, like you were saying, Luke, the attendance every week, just kind of extraordinary. The same students every single time, all there, ready to go, cameras on.
And the participation as well.
The participation. And like, for everybody who's watching this, maybe there's a question mark or something, and I hope there isn't. But if there is, that kind of, we're just saying this because we feel like, we have to or we want to. It's just not the case. And Cullen, you don't have other semesters to compare this to, but Luke and I certainly do. And there is something really special going on, or has been going on this semester, and the kind of culture that we've built. And I just think this series as well has been so pivotal to that. It's been the opportunity to kind of connect much more to the students in a really casual way, to make everything seem less daunting, and hopefully to provide that kind of relief as well. Now, I was too bashful and shy to ask my students about this directly, but the two of you have told me stories about students watching this with family members and that kind of thing, and then being able to watch the films as well with families. And honestly, that is like the most kind of like emotional thing for me to think about. This wasn't designed for that, but like, if that's the depth of it, then I'm like overwhelmed by that, because it means that we have kind of made some kind of impact and difference. Absolutely. And in a way, I think for the three of us, we've probably realized, we haven't spoken about this actually, but I think we probably realized that as much as we're kind of studying marketing and we're studying franchises or whatever, we've kind of been doing more significant work with the students in terms of, I don't know, just the kind of culture that we've built, the discussions that we've been having, the kind of environment that we've been trying to create anyway. So yeah, I just think it's a credit to both of you as well, because I know how your students have been responding to you as well, and I get emails and I hear things, and I'm seeing people in the chat as well. So
Rob,
it's amazing.
just firstly on Callan, just to you, for your first teaching gig, I can tell you right now, the first time I taught, I reckon I was maybe okay, but the feedback, like what I'm seeing in the chat from these students and hearing stories of sort of what your students are sort of giving you as feedback, you've done such a great job considering that you've actually started teaching in lockdown. Like that is a tough thing to do, and to do it over Zoom as well. Like teaching should be and is meant to be in the classroom. It's meant to be physical, and you've embraced it, and you should be really proud of yourself, Callan, for that. It's amazing.
I'm not good at taking compliments. I'm just gonna.
You're gonna have to take it, Callan, because you should honestly be proud. I don't think the first time I taught, I got near as much love and praise as you're getting. So well done. And Rob, honestly, you're incredible. You're an incredible human being and an incredible unit coordinator. This was Rob's initiative, everyone. Callan and I have willingly sort of participated in it, and we've enjoyed it and sort of taken it on as ours as well. But this was Rob's idea, and something that Rob was really passionate about implementing, and sort of came to us in, I think, week 4 or 5. It was the Scream week, and told us his idea and the reasons behind it. And it was for you guys. It was for the students. So, guys, this was Rob's idea, and we should be really grateful to him. And you're still the best lecturer I've ever encountered, Rob. I really do try and emulate in many ways in my own lectures. Like I really do try and emulate you, and you've inspired me in my own sort of teaching so much. So well done to the both of you. And this has just become one complete soppy mess. But I think what this should show everyone is this semester and this unit has meant just as much to us as it has meant to everyone else. And to know and to hear feedback from students, and I've had students say things to me in my tutorials along the lines of that this was the only thing they had to look forward to during lockdown, like this unit, these classes, and Saturday night at the movies. To know that we are having this impact, and that we're able to touch and touch lives and give students and people some sense of solace and comfort during this really challenging period. That's pretty amazing. So you guys should both be proud, and thank you to the students as well. You guys have been incredible.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I didn't mean to laugh at that, Luke. That was really, really touching. I was laughing in the chat at the bot that is promising to satisfy our wishes online, which I think.
Oh, was there a bot? I was so lost in what I was saying. I didn't even realise.
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, that's very kind, Luke, and I obviously would echo that. I think I said in the last episode of Saturday Night, but I mean, I'll just say it again because I think it's worthwhile and important that the two of you have been just like rocks through this semester, and you may not have realized it, but as overworked and whatever as I've been, the opportunity to get on a Friday afternoon and have a chat with you guys was something that I genuinely look forward to. It was sort of like one of the big highlights for me. And I would, I'd wake up on Friday morning and think, I got so much to do. And Fridays was a really hectic day for me. But the notion that, okay, at 2:00, we're going to get on and we're going to have a chat, and was just great. So it's not like this was ever designed for us. But I think I said last time, but you guys were not getting paid to do this. It's not part of any teaching plan or Monash plan or anything like that. This is extra, and you were doing it because you care and you give a shit. And I told my students in the last week that I think part of the reason why I want to set such a high standard for the unit is because we do care about the students. And that seems like, I don't know whether that logic makes sense, but it does to me, because I think that we need to set that example, that these are things worth kind of getting really serious about and taking, great care in and be passionate and all of these sorts of things, which can get a bit lost, I think, in, digital environments, and people get away from that a little bit. So I would just echo everything and say to the both of you to thank you for just kind of, I guess, taking the lead on that as well. And I've never had to ask either of you to kind of, step it up or like get the standard up at any time. I know and I have great faith that you're doing the right thing by the students, and that's huge. That's really huge. So look, before we finish, maybe we'll just do a few quick hitter kind of questions about the unit. Maybe you shared this with your students, but obviously there are other students here. We might like to hear it. Just some kind of best and worst things of the semester. So, I mean, the first one would be your favorite film from the semester. Did you have one?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think we need to ask yours, but my students know mine was Scream. I really love Scream, and I love it even more after teaching it. So that was mine.
Great.
Luke, what was yours?
Do I really have to answer that?
Yeah,
I think it should be pretty obvious. It's like Top Gun. No.
Showgirls, right?
It was obviously the masterpiece that was Joker, but we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, of course.
We're going to leave that. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll be on.
We can put a link in the chat to where they can actually go and see a conversation about that.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Please don't say Lost Highway. Well, if Lost Highway was part of this unit, it definitely would have been my favorite film. Yes.
Well, mine, I mean, in a silly way, I think is Top Gun. Absolutely. In a more sincere, serious way, would be Rebel Without a Cause.
I love Rebel too.
I mean, I really enjoyed that, the lecture, and just thinking about that unit, that film in that way. And then, Luke, it will surprise you, but Joker, not because I think it's a great film, but because I really enjoyed talking about it, and maybe something I'll just mention in a moment anyway, but I had probably the best tutorial conversations that week on that film. And I just thought that was really exciting to hear those perspectives emerge, and they were varied and really reflected the positions that we were sort of discussing in the Saturday night episode. So it would be those two. What about favorite topic? Something that you enjoyed teaching or reading about?
I'd say reviewing and criticism, like echoing what you said, purely for the tutorials that week was really, really good. I love teaching Stardom, which that might segue into favorite tutorial moments, but I was glad that you two both said that you had students that really loved American Graffiti, because a few of my groups didn't. And we had good, they're in the chat now too. And we had good conversations about that. But no, I really enjoyed teaching Stardom, reviewing and criticism, and Jaws was, Maddie, it was you can admit it. And censorship I had a great time teaching, which I didn't expect to, because thinking back to when I did the unit in undergrad, I don't know if you remember, Rob, that we had a documentary on, I think it was called Not Yet Rated, which is just not the same as Showgirls. And the conversation we had that week was really, really good too. So basically everything.
It's a tough one. I actually, to echo Callan, probably Stars. I think the Star Week for me was really great tutorial discussion, and I love the fact that we could bounce off, and I love the breakout room activities and the way that the students embraced that for that particular week, and how we could use examples of other stars. And there's so many stars from so many different eras that we could employ as case study examples. So I really enjoyed the Stars Week. That one sticks out for me, and reviewing and criticism as well, to echo what you guys are saying, mainly because of the divisive, polarizing conversation and debate that we had. I still had some students that were on my side, Rob. So there were some that really enjoyed the film and didn't think that final scene was dangerous. But look, we're not going to go there. But look, overwhelmingly, they were certainly more on your camp, but they were really fun, engaging conversations. Those two probably stick out to me. And I really love Casablanca. Casablanca is such a classic film. And sort of moving right back to the beginning of the unit, I think it's really interesting to just sort of go back and think about that studio system and old Hollywood and the one-off experience and intangible goods and all of these concepts and ideas that we've taught students across the semester, that cinema wasn't, and the actual practice of watching film wasn't what it is today. You had to go to the cinema, you had to pay for a ticket. And there was no way to rewatch the film unless you went back to the cinema. It's incredible to sort of look at that week and Casablanca and the context around that, the studio system, then to think how far we've come as a society, as a world, technologically. But then thinking about Netflix and maybe as kind of like this interesting return to the monopolization of the industry. So there's tie-ins there, but for me, that nostalgic throwback to Casablanca and that primitive period in film production history, I think was really interesting for me.
Sorry, Luke. Callum, go for it.
I was just going to say briefly, because we do want to leave some room for Q&A, I think, but I was surprised how many loved Casablanca, like of my students that said it was their favorite. But the thing that I really liked in week 11 was, I think every film came up across all three of my shoots. Like not one got left out. Everything was someone's favorite. Even one Showgirls. I don't know if he'll watch this, but we had one Showgirls in one of my shoots. So yeah, it was obviously really good. And the comments in the chat are great to see as well. Just knowing that it's a collection of films that people A, liked, but B, hadn't seen a lot of as well. It's sort of the perfect balance, I think.
What about you, Rob?
Well, before I answer that, my hardcore fan has said it would be really nice if we can all reunite one day in a cinema together. I mean, Top Gun Maverick is on the horizon everywhere.
or Joker 2, if we get a Joker 2.
Well, Scream 5 is also in January, so...
What was your highlight, Rob? And you can't answer Top Gun for this, so let's just take that one as a given, because that's the classic lecture. And by the way, everyone, for those that remember Rob's punchline in the lecture,
it's not my punchline.
He used the same punchline in 2019, so he's just copying it across.
It's Tony Scott's punchline, not mine.
So what's your favorite week apart from the Top Gun week, Rob?
So I mean, I would probably say, back to that Rebel Without a Cause and the idea of sort of widescreen. I think it's the first moment where we see these really significant revisions. And I guess that also makes a link. It's not something, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but how the change in screen space also changes kind of what can be shown. And that changes kind of ideological kind of things. It changes textual kind of details, narrative even. And I love that kind of moment for cinema. And then what starts to happen, how filmmakers start to use that space in all sorts of unique ways. So that's a really, I guess, building on the old Hollywood stuff, Luke, where I also really love that week because that system is so extraordinary and I think so fascinating, genuinely. And then, yeah, the sort of jump off point with widescreen. Later in the semester, I think censorship is a really interesting week, which kind of, when you're thinking about it and when I was lecturing it, it's the kind of week that you kind of maybe want to be able to see more examples of, maybe over a couple of weeks where, you know, you show a couple of different films. But I did get students with the major essay writing on censorship and finding their own really fascinating case studies for that, which was great. Yeah. So I would say those weeks. The reviewing and criticism, I think, is really relevant because it touches on a bunch of ideas that strangely are quite personal to me, like the kind of loss of, I guess, intellectual authority through kind of digital platforms and social media. I just think it's not the death necessarily of anything, but I do think it diminishes the reputation of things like that we are doing. And yeah, I just think sets us up in a bad way. I think it's increasingly more difficult to kind of contend with that world and that environment. But I mean, that's no criticism of our students because I think they've done extraordinarily well. Yeah, so I would say those. Maybe lastly, we can just share one brief kind of favorite tutorial moment. I definitely have one. I'm sure you guys do too.
I don't know if I can boil it down to one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do two. But just two very brief ones. So the first one, just because they're in the chat, is my dream team, they called themselves on Tuesday, which was Sushi, Maddie, Regina, and Rajvi. And every week they came along. And the American Graffiti week, when I went into the room and asked them what I thought of it, and just got dead silence. And these are my four most talkative students in the shoot. And it was just blankness. And the feeling that came over me then was not nice. So, but they made it up to me.
Hey, they're still here now.
They are still here now, yeah. And yeah, clearly held a grudge about it. But no, in week 11, I think I'll just mention them by name. I had Lotta, Chris, and Elias in one room, and then it was Anna, Vivian, Helen, and I can't remember who the other one was. I'm sorry if they're watching, but they went to war with each other. I made a Jamboard for everybody to set up, and I was in another breakout room, and I noticed on the Jamboard these comments shooting back and forth at each other. So instead of writing about franchises, they were just taking shots at each other and telling each other to get off their Jamboard. And so I'd like run back to both breakout rooms when I got called for help and had to mediate a civil war between those two breakout rooms. But that sort of boiled down just how much fun, even across like separate breakout rooms, that I had with everyone in my classes. So yeah, it was just a really fun unit to teach.
Luke, any standout moments?
Look, I just had, as I've already, technological mishaps, just my dogs barking consistently in the background, which my students will know all about. So we had a lot of fun with that, and a few students had their dogs and cats walking past the cameras as they love to do, these animals, when we're on Zoom. My sort of, one of my memories actually isn't so much a humorous one, but actually something that I pointed out to my students. It was in my first class. So I had the Wednesday classes, so Wednesday at 12 p.m. And we've got Robert in the chat. I don't know if he's still here, but
he's still here.
He might be there somewhere, or maybe he's gone off. But him and a student, Aiden Dunkley, are two students in that class, amongst a number of others that love to chat and always participated in class discussions. And I remember, I think it was the Star Week. There he is, Robert Johnson. I'm here somewhere. It was the Star Week, and I opened up a question at the beginning, like, so what did you guys think of the film? And let's have a brief discussion about it. Teaching for a number of years and across a number of units and into a number of classes, generally those questions, what did you guys think of the film? Give me your thoughts. They might go for, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes. A few students might share a few thoughts, and generally you have to do 95% of the talking. And in this particular week, and they did it most weeks, I'm pretty sure they went for at least 45 minutes without me saying one single word. And I remember it because I mentioned it to them afterwards. And I remember looking at the clock and thinking, should I interrupt them? I actually ended up not doing a breakout room activity that I had planned, simply because I thought it was so incredible that these students were discussing the film in such an intellectual way and having such a good conversation. So I just let them go. And I don't think that the teacher of the class spoke for 45 minutes. It was just them. So that's one memory that really stands out. The other memory, and Robert, this is for your roommate. Robert's roommate almost became a bit of a famous figure in our tutorial. I don't know whether your roommate's there with you at the moment, Robert, but at the beginning of every single tutorial, what did you guys think of the film? Robert would pipe up straight away. So I watched it with my roommate, and my roommate thought this. So that was a really fun memory as well. It probably also speaks to that sort of collaborative nature of this unit, and the fact that students seem to have been sharing this moment with their friends and family and their roommates. Apparently he's camera shy. Well, he loved to get his opinions across in our tutorials. So, so those were probably my sort of two memories from the unit. They were just so much fun and so dynamic and collaborative. What about you?
Yeah. Sorry, I just read Maddie's comment that we had. Yeah, Maddie's dad was like our Robert room.
Lauren in the chat earlier mentioned one which in the Showgirls week, so this was the Thursday 2:00 tutorial. I think I asked just a general question. We were all just sharing thoughts on the film, what did you think, that kind of stuff. And somebody started off this chain of events, which culminated in Greg. I don't know, Greg might not be here, but he might watch it later. But all their embarrassing stories about watching Showgirls during the week and being interrupted, or having a family member or roommate or somebody kind of, walking past, seeing what was on the screen, whatever it might have been. But Greg's story just was unbelievable. His younger brother walked in to the room behind him and apparently was standing behind him during the sex scene with Kyle MacLachlan in the pool. And I don't think Greg realized. And then he kind of turned around and saw his brother there, and his brother left. I can't do the story justice because it was the way that Greg kind of told the story, which was equal parts kind of just incredibly embarrassed. And I think just mortified because his brother was, I think, 13 or 14.
He's been traumatized by that now.
He's very. And I said, look, did you make sure that you told him that, you were studying? And he said, yes. So there was that. I mean, there were so many. I had I think one of your students, Callan, Enrico, come to one of my tutorials, or maybe that was yours.
No, Enrico's one of my students.
Enrico's one of yours. Greg's storytelling skills are immaculate. Enrico came to one of my tutorials for reasons that I still don't quite understand. And halfway through, no, it was just for 1 week. And I think he missed your tutorial. And then he said, I just wanted to make it up. So he was there. And his iPad camera kept kind of moving by itself. It wanted to kind of show the other part of the room. I think it's got like a face detection thing. And he kept doing this thing to kind of stop it from doing that. And it just got to a point where he couldn't catch it in time. And his roommate was in the room lifting weights, just pumping iron. And his roommate saw that he was on camera and that all these faces were kind of equal parts, kind of mortified, but also Deanna's here, so she knows exactly about this. And he started smiling in the goofiest smile I think I've ever seen in my life, just like the cheesy, like goofy smile. And this went on and on. We were in a breakout room, and every time it happened, the camera would drift away and we'd see the roommate doing a different weight or something like that. And then at one point, Enrico jumped up, ripped off his t-shirt and started pumping weights with his roommate. It was the kind of bizarre moment in my teaching career. I've told my students that and a live proposal in my class are the two weirdest things that have ever happened. So there was a lot of Zoom mania, I feel. But yeah, so many other like conversations, which I'm sure you both had as well, which were just memorable because they were really real and just enjoyable conversations. So yeah, we could be here for 3 hours talking about all of those.
Absolutely. Rob, we probably should move on to a Q&A, but we're probably going to have to keep that brief. I just want to mention one thing, and I'm going to get everyone in the chat to either put a number 1 or a number 2. Okay, so this is something I floated to Rob and Callan, I think, last week, but I had an idea of possibly wanting to continue Saturday Night at the Movies as like a video podcast that expands beyond the unit that we would post. I'm not sure how regularly. What do you guys think of that? Would you tune in? Is it something that you would enjoy seeing if we were to continue this series, possibly?
Shameless market research, yeah.
Put a number 1 if you like it. Put a number 2 if you don't, or just ignore what I've just said if you don't like it. Yes. Ellen seems to like that. Number 1, please. Hell yes. Told you guys. 100% yes. Yes, 1, yes. Okay, so there we go. So I think the decision's sort of taken out of our hands. Guys, number 3, so Bro doesn't like it at all. Whoever Bro is, fair enough. We're not for everyone. My apologies, Bro.
Sorry, Bro.
Right, so look, guys, I probably should have prefaced this by saying this isn't an absolute guarantee. This was just, it's a bit of market research. It's something I floated to the two of them, but it's something that I think would be really cool.
They want student
so-
guests now too.
Yeah, that would be fun
Yeah.
actually. That
That'd
would
be
really
fun, yeah.
fun.
So we've got a YouTube channel. So look, I suppose, Rob, if we do decide to do that, there could be a way of possibly emailing links and things. But
Is this just a really elaborate way of saying like, comment, and subscribe? Because they should do all three of those things.
again, I was actually just about to get to that. So like, comment,
Okay.
and subscribe, please. You
Perfect.
cut me off just at the point, Rob, about to get in with that. But yes, so
should
I
we
think
get
that's pretty
some-
overwhelming.
Get some questions if there's anybody
Yeah,
who's got a
yeah,
question
good.
for any of us, or I don't know. We just wanted to have a brief Q&A at the end if there's anything that you've been dying to ask but haven't had the opportunity yet.
There's a couple that have popped up as we've been going. So
Well, no, I won't be singing the theme song. I think I've decided. So if that's what you're referring to.
No, I think I saw a couple of like Star
Rob,
Trek
should
or
we,
Star Wars and Team Edward and Team Jacob. I'm not sure if we're qualified to answer those.
Okay.
Rob, should
so-
we cap this at a certain time? So should we have maybe like 3 questions?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, I mean, everybody seems fairly engaged, but I'm conscious
Yeah.
that it's Saturday night and they might like to do something else. I don't know. When is the merch coming? I guess is the first question, which is a good one from Monica.
Question.
What sort
Yeah,
of
I
merch
mean-
would you like to see?
Probably just our faces or something. I don't know.
Yeah, t-shirt, right? $2,000 t-shirt.
We'll get Calvin Klein involved. And
They'll collab with us.
yeah. Any others that are? Do we have Letterboxd?
No,
I don't
no,
know.
I've already had people ask me this in class.
Yep.
So I don't either, and I have had students ask me this.
But they should add each other. They could add each other if they put theirs in the chat now. That could be.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Ellen, I like that idea. Plain black and white shirts as our merch.
collector's
Yeah,
edition of box sets
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Like that,
just
I like that.
minimalist sort of shirts. Yeah, maybe we could just sell the shirts that we've been wearing and sign them or something. What other questions have we got? Any other questions? I think everybody just wants merch.
That seems to be the way that it's gone.
No, I don't know.
I think there's a slight delay, Rob. So I think you have to wait because I've noticed that
Couple of
what we're
seconds,
looking at on the chat,
Yeah.
like
It's a
students
little
aren't
bit slow.
responding until 10, 15 seconds later.
So
Okay, there's another
there's a
Marvel
couple.
one. Favorite 2021 movie so far could be quick and brief. Do any of
For
you-
me, a classic horror story on Netflix. Amazing, amazing horror film. Check that one out.
I'm actually like not even
Very
sure if I've
behind.
seen a film that was released this year. Yeah, I don't know if I have. I mean, I've been watching a lot of stuff on streaming, but I don't know. Callan, have you got?
We have
something?
been in lockdown for a lot. No, I'm trying to think of film.
There isn't
I'm trying to
really
think of
much.
film.
There's a
I'm
lot
going to say
sort of
June, which I
released
haven't
on-
seen yet, but I've loved every
Yeah.
trailer for it.
I mean,
Yeah.
we could probably talk about, television series. I mean, I just
Yeah,
recently
maybe.
Midnight Mass. I'm sure a lot of
Yeah, I was going to say Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass
I really
is
enjoyed that.
is an interesting one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a
Mike
lot.
Flanagan, Haunting of Hill House and Blind Manor. So it's his 3rd television series.
Yep, that's a good one.
Do you guys hate Marvel? Why? I know Rob hates it. Can we redeem Marvel in any way, or is that just it's a
That's
dead?
not my job.
I personally don't hate Marvel. I don't like Marvel. There's some Marvel films that I like. I don't mind Captain America, Guardians of the Galaxy, but as a franchise and broadly, no, I don't like it at all. But I can get some enjoyment out of a couple of the films.
I have had this problem throughout Saturday nights. I've talked about this in shoots that with you two, it's almost more acceptable to say you don't like Marvel. But when you're in like your mid-20s, me saying I don't like Marvel is sort of like declaring I'm a Satanist to all of my friends. It's just like an instant social shut off. But no,
It would almost be weird for us to admit that we do like Marvel.
yeah, it
Our
would.
age.
But no, no.
Yeah, Cullen's come over to the dark side. I think I've kind of
Oh,
influenced him.
I don't know. I've been complaining about Marvel movies for a long time. So
That's
but I
true.
think you convince. You can probably remember when we were doing honors, and I would come in and bitch about
like,
the new Spider-Man movie for 2 minutes.
Lauren's question here: what's a film that made you openly sob? For me, Titanic, hands down. I still cry every time.
I scored
Which
musical as
part
well.
when he slips into the water? What's
Oh
the-
yeah. Like I'm an absolute mess. I've got the tissues, and like I'm a complete mess for a day after that. Saying every single time. And
What-
anything to do with animals, like, and that's more of a serious thing there. So any sort of animal dog movie, I can't control myself.
Colin, have you
remember the
been
name of
sobbing recently?
No, I don't have emotions. No, I've been trying to. I'll see if I can come up. You think I'm going to Google it, but yeah, there's a specific film I'm thinking of.
Is it the Notebook?
Well, my answer is probably obviously Top Gun. I mean, I just
Yeah.
you know, the sight of those planes and Tom just brings a tear every time. I don't know whether I've had any kind of emotional film experiences recently. I feel like part of that experience that really gets me is being in the cinema and seeing it on the big screen, and it's hard when you're
Yeah.
streaming something to really get the same feeling. But have you got it, Colin?
Yeah, it's called Dear Zachary. This is a serious answer. It's a
Yeah.
documentary. And that devastated me. Like I cried throughout the full 90 minutes of that.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really powerful documentary. So if
Okay.
anyone
I'll tell you
feels
what,
like crying, they can watch that.
Television series on Netflix, the Ricky Gervais series Afterlife and Derek, if you guys have seen those. If you got anyone's a Ricky Gervais fan and has seen those, they're tearjerkers. If anyone wants a good cry, amazing shows.
Yeah, none's coming to, it's a bit like that franchise question, what's your favorite franchise? And we all couldn't really think of one, but there are obviously answers to it, but I just can't think of any for that.
Which is strange because I'm like, that's a complete joke about me having no emotions. I well up at everything. Like I'll be watching anything and I get really emotional really easily. So yeah.
Well, Cullen, you know that, you know, probably the most emotional experience of the last year or two for me is
Yeah.
The
I know
Last of
what
Us.
it
It's
is.
not a film. It's
The Last
a
of Us
video
too.
game.
Well, that's probably for both
Yeah.
of us. Yeah.
Well, and I think you might, even though we're at the end, I think you might need to kick Layla out of the chat. I cried in Titanic because it was a waste of 3 hours. I believe that Layla might be a troll.
Never. No.
Layla bot.
We accept all opinions here later.
Yeah, we do.
What is the movies that you're looking forward to that are coming out soon or being filmed currently? That could be an interesting one.
Well,
Layla, I'm not having this debate. I'm done with it.
My answer is obviously Maverick. That's been on the horizon for years
Clearly,
now.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything that you've been keeping an eye on?
I keep mentioning it, but I want to see June really badly. That's like what.
Is that not
most
coming
times
out here for a while or
till December? Yeah,
December, right? Mm.
yeah. It's out like today, yesterday, and everywhere
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
very upsetting.
I think for everybody, that's the type of film that, you know, you should really endeavor to go and see at IMAX or something
Yeah.
like that. Really
Yeah,
get that
definitely.
huge experience. I'm like you, Cullen. I think I'm looking forward to that. I forgot about that, but yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we're meandering around. We might sort of wrap things up, and
We should probably wrap it up now.
we've been going for quite a while, and I'm conscious of that. But look, to everybody who's been in the chat, chatting away and typing all these great comments and making us laugh, thank you very much for being here. You know, we fully anticipated maybe 3 or 4 people being here, and you've totally overwhelmed us, I think. So we really appreciate it. We genuinely really appreciate it. Important question, maybe this is a good one to answer, but which unit are we going to teach next semester? The honest answer to that is we don't know. The shameless answer to that is please fill out the set shoes and give us some good reviews, because it really does help if you want to see us around. But
it's a tricky one, isn't it, Rob? With the teaching, we sort of don't really know what we're going to be teaching. Sort of depends. Sometimes we sort of know earlier. Often we don't find out until like a week or two before the unit begins. So we don't know. We probably will have a better understanding by, I'd say, mid-Jan, early February, roughly.
Yeah.
But we will all be teaching something. We should be anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, Lotto, as well, for that comment as well. It's really nice. So yeah, I guess there's you know, I have no doubt anyway that we'll be crossing paths as a teaching team again in some form or another. And yeah, look, it's I guess it's a sad kind of moment to be putting an end to this, at least. But yeah, for everybody, again, thank you for being here. If you're watching this, in the next couple of days, watching a replay or whatever, half of what we're talking about might not make much sense. But again, I appreciate you doing that. And for everybody who's just been watching these ongoing each week, I do really appreciate that as well, because that was the whole point. And if it has kind of connected with you, then I think we're all just genuinely so happy about that. So yeah, I'll let the other guys sign off, and then I'll say a final word.
Yeah, I've sort of already really covered it. I've got a couple of students from my other unit here as well, and again, it's just been such an emotionally charged semester for, I think, students and staff. So a huge thank you for spending your Saturday night with us, firstly, for tuning in across the semester, and for just being an incredible cohort. As Rob mentioned earlier, we don't just say this to all. We honestly don't say this to all classes and all cohorts. This probably is up there with one of the best cohorts I think I've been involved in. Certainly some of the best classes I've ever had. Participation and attendance, just amazing. You guys have really gotten behind this initiative, and it's sort of almost sort of rejuvenated us, hasn't it, guys? And I know we've sort of spoken about this a little bit over, particularly in the second half of the unit, that this has meant just as much to us as it has to you all. So thank you. And please don't be shy if you see us around campus, say hi. That's really important. Don't just sort of have your head down and walk past. Please feel free to say hi.
We'll take it really personally. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I'll shun you. If you're in my class, I'll move you off somewhere else. Did you have anything, Callan?
Yeah, I already did a big soppy spiel to all of my classes anyway, but just to reiterate to the ones that are here, how much it meant every week that they were coming and being involved, particularly because it was my first time teaching. Just having that sort of engagement and then support, but then genuine, just everyone getting along and having a good time every week. That made such a huge difference for me, and that's all down to my students, not to me. So I just wanted to thank them again, and then thank you two, because this has been really fun every week for me. Like you said before, Rob, I looked forward to doing it every week. I've been looking forward to tonight. And yeah, it's just not just the idea that people are enjoying the unit, but that they're enjoying this, and then also saying things like in the chat that they're going to watch more films or, think of this unit when they're watching films. That's genuinely pretty special. So yeah, thank you to everyone, you two as well.
All right. Well, look, resounding, wholesome, gushing emotions and all the rest. It's great. We need a bit more sincerity, I think, in the world these days, and a bit more connection. And that's kind of been the other impetus for all of this as well. So we will leave things there and finish our first live stream, guys. That was pretty fun. That went pretty well.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
But I think, again, overwhelmingly, might not be our last. We'll see how we go.
We'll see. And I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone in the chat as well, because there's way more than we thought there'd be. So.
Yeah, I'm reading all of these comments. I'm glad to see that I'm getting a Monash Clubs and Society fandom.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Group,
I'll join that.
Which is really lovely. I hope you make one for Callan and Luke as well. So, look, thank you very much, everyone. Callan, you're the kind of you're holding the keys to the stream, so I'll let you kind of finish it up.
We'll see if I can figure out how to do it.
Because if I was trying to take care of this, I don't know what would happen. So
well done, Callan, for that as well. Yeah. But yeah, we've been planning this for a week. We've been very excited, and I think it's gone really well. So look, on that note, well done on the semester, everyone. I can't thank you enough for the engagement, the reception each week, and just for treating Callan and Luke so well as well. It makes me really happy to hear all of that and read all of that tonight. Go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. You're kind of done with the unit now. Please take a moment to just reflect and take a break. And I guess hopefully we will be seeing some of you maybe next year, if not in a classroom, then at least on campus. And like Luke said and Callan said, please just stop and say hello. It doesn't seem like it, or you might not think it, but it would genuinely really make us really happy
It would.
to have that moment just to say hi and even just 5 or 6 minutes to reflect on this very weird sort of semester and end to the unit as well. It's been a difficult time and a difficult year, so I think we all deserve a bit of a break and
absolutely
a bit of time to relax.
Rob, if I could just say one final thing as well, and this is particularly for those students that are sort of in Melbourne at the moment, really enjoy this next phase. It's been so tough, so just enjoy yourselves and really try and enjoy your summer and look after yourselves and each other as well. But I'm glad that we could provide you solace and comfort during this really challenging time. So thank you, everyone.
Well, Callan, actually, I just think, should we, I mean, they already saw it, but maybe we should go out with our intro theme song again, just one final time.
That's a good idea.
Everybody, I just hope you love this theme song as much as I do. And it's so perfect and it fits the tone of everything. And so let's get into it, Callan. And thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you all
Thanks,
hopefully next year. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, Saturday night at 8 o'clock, I know where I'm gonna go.
I have a question for Luke and Callan. And my question is, Luke, wait, is Callan frozen?
Callan is frozen. Should we start again?
This is it never freezes when I'm in class. And then obviously as soon as Rob starts talking, it's just everything freezes.
And we have Luke and we have Callan here at oh, not again.
It's happened again.
Who cares what picture you see? When you're hugging with your baby, let's roll in the balcony. Well, that's technical.
Scooby-Doo was my threshold for horror when I was little. So
yeah, no, I didn't select this film, by the way. This was all Rob, so I'm not having that on me. That's a lie, Rob. I want to say, Rob, that I hope that you paused the film when you were texting your film, because no one should ever be looking down at their phone and then looking at another screen while watching a film. Guys, that is just as bad as drink driving. You've got to focus on the road while you're driving. Focus on the screen, the film, when you're watching it, please, Rob. That's really bad.
I totally agree.
How much time do we have left, Rob?
Oh, we've got all day, but
Can I put you on the spot? I want to put you on the spot specifically. I think you probably know where I'm going with this, Rob.
And Luke's already covered everything. Like, I don't think there's anything to add to that. But like, Rob, you can say that we didn't have to do this, which is true. But like, how would we not want to do this with how much fun we've been having every week?
I thought you were going to say something else there.
No, we've had like a blast every week doing this, and I'm glad that a lot of the students watching seem to have as well. And so, I echo everything both of you said.
I guess I should just end on the note that, my self-esteem has just gone through the roof thanks to these, because of the amount of crap that I've been copying from Luke and Callan. And it's a great confidence boost. I sort of end these and think, oh, geez, I feel so good about myself. I really appreciate those compliments.
Feel loved.